Hey, I am back. Welcome to hell, motherfuckers. It's been a crazy start to 2025 for sure. I think for everybody, not just me, So hopefully everybody's hanging in there, and some fucking wild shit going on, especially here locally. And it was not a good start around here with those crazy fucking fires. So I'll start with that real quick, get into it, and how it affected me. Let's just say real quick, it's 100 times worse than what everybody has seen in the media and the politicians going back and forth and everything. Yeah, no, it was fucking insane. So got me, myself, I was fine. I live south about, but LA traffic adds an hour and a half to everything. So I'm basically between the two fires, the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire, I was little less than an hour south of all that, going both ways, because you got one, that was west and one that was east, a part of the LA County area. So, but I got a lot of friends that were affected, and unfortunately, a handful of friends that lost their homes. Thankfully, nobody that I personally know passed away during this disaster, but it was nuts. We were getting smoke and ash down here, of course, because those devil winds are no joke. And, the Santa Ana winds are a regular occurrence here for those not familiar. I mean, we get them all the time. I don't know whose genius idea it was to build housing here in this region, but, it's probably better served to be just normal kind of farmland and crops. And, they're just keep trying to cram more and more people here. But, all jokes aside, it was, we get the devil winds. I don't know. I don't even remember the last time that we had winds like that, where they're like 80, 100 miles an hour up in the foothills and the mountains. So, yeah, it just was absolutely fucking nuts. And there's all kinds of weird shit in the media going on out there. And, a lot of us are pissed off and disappointed and this and that. But at the same time, you just got to keep your thoughts with those people that lost everything. Got a couple of really close friends that just literally lost everything. I can't even imagine. They lost all their music collection. A couple of them lost literally their home studio with all the musical equipment. I mean, vintage stuff that they've collected for years and just gone. They had time to grab their phone and their pets. Maybe if they're lucky, their laptop. That was it, because the fires were sweeping through so quickly. People didn't have time. So now my family was affected, unfortunately, because my Auntie Amelia and her house and her daughter, my cousin Allison, they basically the family has owned that property for 75, 80 years. It's one of the old neighborhoods in Altadena that basically got ravaged. So there was a lot of old homes from the, early 1900s that were built there that are just gone. Everything's gone, so it's, luckily they have another home outside of the area, and they were able to evacuate safely. Their home actually survived, believe it or not. The one home in the entire region that survived in that big neighborhood. In their specific neighborhood, there was about 30 homes, and the other 29 homes all burnt down to the ground. And Amelia and Allison's house survived, but the smoke damage, the ash, the mud from the water, from the, attempting to put the fire out, which was unsuccessful. There's probably, the house is a total loss. My aunt was saying that the clothes and furniture and everything just totally reeks of, how do you clean all that? Plus the services are probably still out as I'm doing this video. Since the fires happened last month, a electricity and gas and, you know, all that stuff, water, all that stuff's off. I don't even, why the hell would you want to even live in a neighborhood like that? You know, you only have the one house there, and it's just devastating. So yeah, but you know, the bottom line is that they're safe. My friends that lost their homes, they're safe. So there's all kinds of GoFundMe's that are flying around out there for a lot of people. I don't know if some of them have closed or not. If any of you are interested in donating, then just hit me up, send me a message or a comment on here, and I can point you in the right direction. But, you know, at the same time, I know things are tight and tough right now. And, you know, not a lot of people have any spare change. So it is what it is, unfortunately. And, but, you know, hopefully everybody bounces back and, you know, things get put back together. But yeah, it's, I'm telling you, it's a lot worse than what a lot of you are seeing out there. You know, you could just go on YouTube, and there's actually the LA Times, and there is a person from Santa Monica that was allowed to take a GoPro and a cam on a, like he has like some sort of scooter. He's been going through Malibu and the Palisades, filming the devastation. And I don't think they were allowed to film in Altadena because there was a lot of missing people in Altadena, a lot of older folks, unfortunately. So there was a lot of body recoveries going on. So, you know, they had to get through all the rubble to find these unfortunate souls that, you know, maybe had their hearing aids out and didn't hear the evacuation warnings, or just was, you know, unfortunately they were too slow. And yeah, that's just so sad, you know, but what are you going to do? You know, just have to move forward. So yeah, that was brutal. That was brutal. I wanted to start the show off with that, but me and my family are all safe and accounted for, and you know, we'll everybody's gonna be fine. If you survive, that's all that matters. And then, you know, there's gonna be a mess trying to figure everything out, trying to recover, but you know, you got your health, and just got to take it from there. And unfortunately, got a couple of more things I wanted to chat about real quick before we get into the beef of the show. My good buddy, Mr. Beer Reeves, passed away. Rest in peace to Chris. That was his real name, but you know, we knew him as Beer, and he was the singer of Hod and Pill Crusher, and you know, a bunch of other bands. But I knew him from Hod, and I met Beer in February of 2010 when I was in Grave Hill. We did a weekend trip out to Texas. So we played San Antonio, Houston, and Austin that weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Beer booked the shows for us because we made friends like around 2009. You know, he really liked Rites of the Pentagram, and we really liked the Serpent album on Ibex Moon. So we were label mates because we were both on Ibex Moon. So McEntee, you know, started hooking up bands. Just thought it was a good idea for us to do some stuff together, but we got in contact with Beer, and, you know, he was known for booking shows over there in Texas. So yeah, he hooked us up. And, you know, when he picked us up from the airport, his friend Cece, who's awesome too, she played guitar in Phobia for a while, but yeah, she's a staple in Texas. Real awesome person. She was driving because Beer had a broken leg, so he was on crutches. So we're like, what the hell? Is Hod still playing? And he's, oh yeah, I'm just gonna play with my crutches on stage. Oh shit, okay. So from there, you know, he took us into San Antonio, and first stop was Whataburger, so we got to experience that. That was the first time we had it. We loved it. And then we didn't get a chance to go to Buc-ee's on that trip. I made it there eventually, but you know, we talked about there wasn't enough time because he had an itinerary plan for us. Fucking Beer was a planner, so we had a tight schedule because it was all about Whataburger. And then the most important thing was the beer, drinking the beer. So we had to go to the store to get a bunch of fucking Lone Stars. So that's the first time we drank Lone Star too. So yeah, we did that. And then Beer and I bonded over his awesome wrestling collection. He had a bunch of old school VHS tapes of classic wrestling from the 70s and 80s. A lot of Mid-South, Texas, you know, Memphis, Midwest, Florida, you know, the Eastern Seaboard, you know, just all over, all the good stuff, you know, the classic Bruiser Brody and, just the fucking, fucking Stan Hansen and Tommy Rich, Kevin Sullivan, and just the brutal shit. And it was cool. And then he had a lot of other stuff too, toys, and he's really into Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and stuff like that. So yeah, he's really, really cool. So obviously we had a lot in common, and drinking beers, talking smack, and then ended up at the 10-11 that night in San Antonio, and had one of the classic shows of all time. Lots of violence and fighting. And before the Gravehole set, he had bought he worked at Hogwild too, one of the infamous classic record stores in San Antonio. So he took us there. We hung out there for a little bit, and then went to one of his liquor store haunts, and he got a bottle of Texas whiskey. And I was like, oh shit, shit's getting serious now. And he's like, yeah, man, the place we're playing is one of my hangouts. So I worked the door, because he was a bouncer, because he's a big, crazy motherfucker. So, and so he was able to bring the whiskey in there. And I was like, you can bring that in here? He's like, oh yeah, man, this is my place, So it was pretty cool. So we had our own bottle, but then before he cracked it, he slammed it down on the bar, and he looked at me and Body Bag, Rob, and he said, all right, you California pussies ready to fucking drink or what? So that was a personal challenge. So yeah, we tried to keep up. Of course, beer could drink like a alcoholic fish. And, but we had a good time, man. That was a legendary show. And yeah, we just, Houston and Austin, it was just memorable. We had to deal with one of those crazy Texas storms on Sunday in Austin, where everything was flooded and just the fucking rain was brutal. If you've been to Texas, you live there, you know what I'm talking about. Those fucking Texas storms are fucking brutal, just like the state, man. Everything's big over there, out there, Texas. And yeah, no, it was the Brotherhood was formed, and I got a picture of that night. There's beer on the left. There's me in the middle of my Lone Star, and our old buddy Tom Stevens from Nocturnal. He was living in San Antonio at the time. So good memories, man. That was at the 10-11 after the Grayville set. That's why my head's all red. Got the blood still dried on my fat head. So, and there's Beer's crutches right there. It's classic. So yeah, he had a fucking broken leg, and he was still one of the best frontmen I'd ever seen in metal. He was fucking intimidating. I mean, you can see in that first picture, it's fucking brutal. So love you, Beer. Rest in peace, brother. He's no longer with us, but he, in the physical world here, but on the other side, he is there, and we will see him again soon. And then unfortunately, my buddy Brian also passed away. Jumped around between Indiana and Illinois. He was in Carpathian Funeral. Really good dude, man. Solid dude. Another crazy character in a good way. Like I said, just like Beer, Brian was another maniac. And I met Brian in 2011. Grayville was playing Central Illinois Metal Fest, and Carpathian Funeral played. And there was some protesters that were there, religious protesters out front, and Brian got into it with them. And I'd already met him. We had a beer and introduced himself and whatnot. Really cool dude. Said he's a big Grayville fan. That was fucking awesome. And then so later, after the Gravehill set, I was out back, and it was fucking July 2011 in the Midwest. One of those brutal summers, like it's 150% humidity. It's like 100 degrees outside, and it's just, oh fuck, it's brutal. So I'm outside trying to clean the blood off and the sweat and everything. And, after the Grayville performance, because we'd used blood, and he comes back there. He's like, oh shit, man, I beat up one of the protesters because he was talking shit, got in my face. So I had to fucking sock him a few times. Oh shit. So yeah, the cops are looking for me. I was like, all right, well, the back door was open. Security guards knew him. They were kind of laughing. I'm like, dude, go inside, go into the dressing room area and just fucking hide in there. And if I see the fucking cops, I'll tell them I didn't see you. So he does. He goes in, and the cops did come back there looking. A couple of them. I said, no, I haven't seen him, man. No one's been back here. I'm just kind of rinsing off. All right. I guess they didn't. It wasn't that serious enough to go in or something. I don't know, but yeah. I think the promoter and the people that ran the venue didn't want the cops in there anyways. So they didn't really give a shit. You know, they did their, well, we looked for him. All right, he's not around. And they just took off. So yeah, no, Brian was a character, good guy. He showed me this really funny footage, man. You know, fucking crazy. I don't know how he got it. It was a police dash cam footage of Brian getting pulled over, and this big highway patrol cop, kind of fat looking Midwest cop, you know, like highway patrol guy, chip looking uniform or whatever. We call the highway patrol here in Cali Chips because the show with Eric Estrada and John Wilcox, classic. But anyways, this dude was highway patrol over there, and wherever Brian was, Brian kind of been in and out of jail and shit. That's why we got along. We'd talk about those experiences. Same with beer, you know, just kind of, yeah, fucking mayhem, get in trouble, get arrested a few times. No biggie. Nothing to see here. But yeah, so Brian actually was able to get footage of him fighting with this fucking CHP, this CHP officer. It was fucking hilarious. And he's tussling with the dude. Didn't ever reach for his gun, but they're sitting there fucking wrestling and punching each other, and it was something else. It was pretty classic. I think Brian got away too, but they found him later, threw him in jail for a while for all that because he had a bunch of charges on him. But the video was fucking classic. He's fucking wrestling with this big old cop. It's all on video, man. I have to hunt it down. I don't know if I can get like a copy of it to save to my desktop or anything. I think he sent it to me through Facebook. I'll have to see if I can save that because this is fucking great. But yeah, rest in peace, Brian, man. Beer and Brian, gonna miss both of those guys. So I just wanted to do a quick tribute to Beer and Brian real quick. And, my heart and thoughts go out to the families and, the close people like all the heads in San Antonio, like Carl and Marilyn that were obviously tight with Beer. And then Mark, the singer, Carpathian Funeral, he sent me a GoFundMe link. Brian's, I believe that both Beer and Brian have GoFundMe's going right now. There is so many GoFundMe's going because of the fire disasters out here. I can't even keep track of what's what. And then the Beer and Brian ones popped up too. So I got a bunch that are saying that. Another buddy that had a really bad motorcycle accident and been sending his around. And there's some other ones too. It's just tragedies, So, but Brian's daughter has a GoFundMe set up for him for his services. And then I believe they're trying to do a tribute to Beer and, rent a hall and get the food and drinks and everything and try to get that going. So again, if you're able to, donate, just let me know and I can send the GoFundMe's over to your way. With that being said, let's get going with the episode with the Florida death metal demo, madness, extravaganza, craziness. And again, with that being said, let's fucking go. All right, so I wanted to start that. I've been talking about this concept of like different states and the bands within the state, and it's different countries as well with those bands, specific bands from those different countries. But I wanted to start with Florida because to me, at least, that's where the big explosion kind of originated from. Now I know that there's other bands and areas that spawned some death metal bands that might have laid claim, like a lot of people say, oh, Possessed started it, or Battery actually started it, or Hellhammer started it, and there's some arguments, and mostly it's Possessed, on that front. But then obviously a lot of people think Death started it, Mantis, with Cam, Rick, and Chuck, right? To me, Mantis moving into Death, kind of, they started death metal to me. So that's Tampa, Florida, right? So Death is the band that really kicked off official death metal. And to me, Scream Bloody Gore is the first death metal album. Straight up death metal. The heaviness, the vocals, the lyrics, song title, the whole thing. So not taking away anything from Seven Churches or Strapato or, you know, any of the apocalyptic raids or whatever, you know, Under the Sign of the Black Mark. I've heard that before too. That's the first death metal album. There's a few others, you know, that are brought up. There's a few other bands, you know, Master started it, and Master's fucking awesome too. Just like Seven Churches rules, right? But to me, Possessed, they were part of the thrash metal scene up in the Bay Area. They had that Debbie, the manager, she managed a lot of those bands. Possessed was part of that. That's where they started. And even, you know, the later albums and releases had a little bit more of a thrash tinge to them. It's not like they got any heavier. Seven Churches is definitely the most extreme release. The demo is fucking even better, in my opinion. I know that's controversial, but I think the demo is better than Seven Churches. And I love Seven Churches, like I said, not taking anything away from Possessed. But to me, Mantis is the first historical death metal band. And obviously, Cam Lee will tell you the same thing. You know what I mean? I know, you know, he's a controversial figure on social media and whatnot. He's a friend of mine, though, and just everything that I've talked to him about. So I didn't know Chuck, never talked to him. And I met Rick Roz here and there over the years, back in the Massacre days in the early 90s when they played here. Cool guy, you know, but I don't really know him too well. But Cam, I've had a lot of conversations with about this subject, and I agree with him, you know. So I think Death kicked it off, you know, to me. And since they were in Florida, that's, to me, who the very first death metal band, Mantis moving into Death, you know, that whole thing. So Chuck definitely kind of started that all off, you know. And I do have some real quick, I'm going to, you know, because Death deserves their own show. And another band I'm going to talk about here shortly definitely deserves their own show for sure with their impact on me. But, you know, got a bootleg Death demo from back in the day. This is not an original. I got this, you know, sometime around 90, 91 from Tape Traders, probably from Steve-O from Ipatago. I can't remember exactly, you know, but yeah, this is the very first Death demo. Never got a copy of the Mantis demo, unfortunately, but I think some of the riffs and ideas ended up on some of these later Death songs. But so yeah, there's the Death demo. Let's see. And then this is one of the next ones is the Reign of Terror. This is also same time. I think I got this a little bit later. But yeah, this is the Reign and Terror demo, another bootleg from the early 90s. You know, like I've been saying, they're Tape Trader copies, right? So somebody just, you know, we didn't have the internet back then. So you just were literally at somebody's house and you would trade or borrow, you know. So if somebody had a demo like that, then you'd grab it. This one's really cool too, because this is a rehearsal tape, but I don't think anybody was as prolific as Chuck as far as spreading rehearsal tapes out there. If you look at how many like different recordings of Death, like just rehearsing, got that he sent out. Like he was the original OG Tape Trader. You know, he kind of kicked this stuff off. As far as I'm concerned, there might be somebody before him that was doing this, but because I know like Metallica and Slayer, they were doing the same thing. Lars, you know, he's talked about it, tape trading, but I mean, Chuck was just, with the amount of material he was just recording in the jam room and then sending it out to people. I mean, you can talk to the Slaughter guys, you could talk to Scott and Matt from, you know, Genocide and Repulsion, and they were just getting material from him left and right. Chris Reifert, same thing. You know, Chuck was sending them. Of course, some of these guys ended up jamming with Chuck, you know, and of course Reifert, you know, jammed with him early on and was on Scream Bloody Gore, you know, and then obviously started his own thing with Autopsy. But yeah, this one's cool because it's the main thing is a rehearsal from '86. That's when they started really getting heavier. But then like a bunch of rehearsals are on here, and there's some live stuff too. So it's like 90 minutes of material of just death jamming. This is one of my favorites, just really raw. And then one of the most important death metal demos of all time, the Mutilation demo. I know Mr. Uncle Ken from the Death Metal Crypt, he kicked off his show with the Death Mutilation demo. And just like his, this is a bootleg. I got this from my friend Apache. He was a crazy local guy that sang in a band called Fallen God, and he was infamous for like getting really drunk and talking shit in the front row, like when local bands are playing. He'd start talking shit, and yeah, in a friendly way. He was just a ball buster, you know. So he was crazy though, but he was a little older and had a really, really cool tape collection too. So ended up hanging out with him one day, and he was nice enough, you know, because I had a good reputation. I wasn't stealing shit or keeping it, you know, from people. So they would let me borrow shit. I'd let them borrow shit because I had a lot of stuff, obviously, as you've been noticing. So, but, you know, some of us, you know, some of us that have large collections, we don't have everything. So we need to, you know, we need to barter and trade and do all kinds of crazy shit, you know. So another cool thing that I received was a bootleg of the Ravage demo. This is Atheist. So this was Ravage, and I had heard about them on the what was that compilation, the LP, the Raging Death comp. So Ravage was on there, and loved fucking On They Slay, you know. So I ended up getting a bootleg of this again, 90, 91, something like that. But this is a Mexican bootleg from Chopo Brujos down in Mexico City, probably the best heavy metal flea market in the world. They have everything down there, literally everything. And actually the bootleg shirts and demo tapes and whatnot are top notch, especially the tapes and the shirts. It's always, I got many bootleg shirts from down there over the years. It's always been top quality. And this is really, the sound's actually pretty damn good too, considering, you know, it being a bootleg. And then the other cool bootleg that I got, make sure I'm doing it. This is the Executioner demo. This is all Florida stuff. So that's Obituary. Those are the guys, but they were on the Raging Death comp too. Find the Arise, and I forget the other song. It was fucking awesome. Loved it. But yeah, there we go. So that's the old name. Try to get the glare off there. Same thing. Got both of these from Chopo. El Chopo down there, and we had a lot of dudes that were here locally that would travel back and forth down there, and they'd bring everything back up. Bootleggers and tape traders. So yeah, it's, you know, and they would come up here. I mean, you could probably, back in the day, I think people were, you know, I mean, I talked about Steve from Seraphic Decay making covers at Kinko's, you know. So it's not like the highest quality, but you could do it, you know. So, but I mean, those were printed, you know, down there in Mexico somewhere. Someone got a hold of the demos and railed off some color covers. So that's all good. But I think the next band that I want to bring up, Florida, before we get into the main meat of the demo stacks, is the shirt that I'm wearing, Morbid Angel. And they are, to me, the most important Florida death metal god band after Death. You know, Death kind of kicked it off. Maybe they invented it in that sense, and I think Morbid Angel perfected it. So, you know, the early material into Altars of Madness and Blessed Are the Sick. I mean, it's just that was the elite of death metal. Of course, Altars of Madness is one of my favorite all-time death metal albums. It's one or two usually. Basically, I think, you know, Altars, Sever Survival, and Left Hand Path could be 1, 2, 3. It's usually Severed, but Altars is like, I don't know. Sometimes I change my mind. It's like, fucking Altars, man. It's just unbelievable. But yeah, I got a pretty cool Morbid Angel bootleg collection. This is the Abominations album. This is another Mexican bootleg. So this has the Abominations album on there, the nice raw one. I know Earache did like a little bit of a fancier version back in the day. And then let's see. This is cool. I forgot to write down exactly what's what, but this has some really cool material on there, some rehearsal stuff, jamming live. You can see the progression of them getting tighter and tighter. You know, they had different drummers and whatnot. I'm going to talk about some of the, because a lot of the Florida bands had a lot of the same members. So historically, these guys are all legends. And some of these guys that I'm going to be talking about in these other bands, they were in bands. They were in Morbid Angel and, some of these other bands, and they jumped around and then started their own bands. This is Scream Forth Blasphemies. Another cool bootleg, kind of old and faded. It's got those tracks on there. And then this is really raw, bunch of old rehearsal shit on there too. And, basically demo, tape trader quality or whatever. But, I believe this is all either from Chopo or copied from there. And then one of the best demos ever recorded, Thy Kingdom Come. This is when they started really getting heavy duty. Classic. And this is not an original either, the Thy Kingdom Come. This is a bootleg. I was, when this came out in 87, I always joke, like I was still into Anthrax and shit like that. So, this thrash was raging. So I just started discovering Napalm Death and Carcass and some of this other stuff. Of course, Death really started leading me on the heavy path, Scream, Bloody Gore, and Leprosy. And then I had to backtrack because I was too young. I was too young to get originals of all this stuff. So, over that early period, that's all I did. Who the hell had time for sleep? And, prior to discovering women and alcohol, it was all demo tapes, as you could see. So, that was the way it was for a while when you're just a dumb, nerdy kid and start collecting all these crazy demo tapes. And then real quick, too, the cool old flyer, Nosferatu Records. This was a dude, Roberto, out of Italy. I think it was kind of funny. I saw a note saying that Mike Browning gave Roberto the master because he had just left Morbid Angel and he was pissed. And so I don't think they were amicable at that time. They were not friends. At that time, I think everything got smoothed over later with Mike when he got Nocturnus going. Well, I'll talk about it in a bit. But so he gave Roberto over there in Italy the rights to put out Abominations of Desolation. I think Trey and the guys were pretty pissed. Bootlegs. This thing's rare. Fucking classic, though. I never got a copy of this, unfortunately. The LP. It's very rare. Very rare. And then it was cool because Morbid Angels started gigging around. So a lot of, I think my buddy, Brian Pattison, booked this because this is Buffalo, the Sky Room in Buffalo. And rest in peace, Brian. Once again, I brought him up. He did the Day of Death. And I think he probably helped book Morbid Angel up there. Him and Ed Farshty. Ed's in New York City, but I'm sure they brought Morbid Angel up to the East Coast and worked together. Everybody worked together to get, Joe Pupo, Ed Farshty, Brian Pattison. These are all guys that did fanzines and booked underground shows back in the day. But what a lineup, huh? Morbid Angel, Ripping Corpse, Baphomet, Immolation, and Revenant. $7 advanced from the local bands and $9 the day of the show. I mean, 5 legendary fucking death metal bands for $9 at the door. And like it says there at the bottom, it's a little cut off, only upstate appearance. And then I found this one. It was pretty cool. Like I said, I'm not going to get too deep. I'm going to have a bunch of other flyers to show as far as Morbid Angel goes, but I'm going to save that they're going to get their own show because that's how important early Morbid Angel is to me. And this is awesome too. Streets in New Rochelle, New York. I'm not sure. Thrashing Death. Not sure how much before or after this was from the other Morbid Angel show, but Immolation, Revenant, the old Immolation logo too. So this was probably prior to the other show I mentioned. But yeah, what a fucking, that's cool. That's how the underground was at that point too. Morbid Angel was starting to make their mark at that point. I don't even know if they made it overseas yet. Once they got over there, as you've read in some of these books, they just blew minds because they were elite. They were just the best. I know people kind of consider them goofy these days because of, current and former members, the behavior, the one horrible album they put out a few years ago. It's kind of a joke with the techno on there and shit or whatever, just really bad. I'm not a big fan of the Steve Tucker stuff. Nothing against him. Just the songwriting is just, as far as like the techie stuff or whatever, it's cool and everything, but it's not Altars of Madness to me. I kind of checked out after Blessed, and I was cranky about Covenant when it came out. I didn't want to like it because of the video on MTV and stuff. Bow to me. I thought it was fucking lame. So, but the rest of the album is fucking incredible. And then it's funny, years later, like somewhere in the 2007, 2008, remember the iPods, right? So Body Bag, my buddy from Ruin and Grave Hill, Rob, he snuck Covenant on my iPod at one point. We were partying in the garage and he was able to put some songs on there. So yeah, let me put some Merciful Fate on there for you. Yeah, okay, cool, man. And he snuck Morbid Angel Covenant on there. So one day I'm driving around town. This is a couple years later. I didn't even realize it was on there. And it's on shuffle, right? I mean, if you're familiar with that, you can put the iPod on shuffle for all you middle-aged farts, maybe some old farts too. But you put it on shuffle, and then all of a sudden some Morbid Angel comes on. I was like, whoa, that doesn't sound like Blessed Are the Sick. What the fuck? And I look, Covenant, what the fuck? Oh, this is fucking cool, man. All right. Then I busted, took it off shuffle, put on the album. All right. Well, I was an asshole. This album's fucking brutal. So there you go. That was Covenant. The first time, I can't even put this hat on. It's all fucked up. This is my Morbid Angel hat from 1990 when they first came here. See how fucked up it is. But this is the country club. They had, I got the flyer up back there somewhere. There we go. Point that way. Got the Morbid Angel show up there. But yeah, they played the 2 nights and all the really good local bands opened up for them. But I went both nights and got my Morbid Angel hat. This is my hat from 1990. Of course, I started wearing this every fucking day for the next 2 years. So you can imagine the stench. I'm not even going to smell it. And then this is a cool beanie that my buddy Thomas made from Patchmaster. It's a cool Morbid Angel beanie. It's too stuffy in my room right now. I'm not going to put it on. But he's got the Bleed for the Devil on the back with the Morbid Angel pentagram. The Angelgram. But yeah, it's fucking awesome. Classic, red and black. So, like I said, I know that people think Morbid Angel's goofy. They're not the same. Listen, back then, they were the shit. Those pictures on the back of Altars of Madness, fucking, Trey's bleeding and fucking David Vincent looks like Satan himself and fucking they just look like demons, man. It was just, they were just a machine and we thought they just came straight out of hell. Being a kid, just the aura behind them was special, and then you see them live and they're just incredible, just unfucking believable. It's just, then you hear the stories they were practicing every day for like 16 hours a day straight. Pete was just practicing his blast beat. They were just writing and, you could see why they blew up, and they worked their asses off, and they fucking put death metal on the map, because then it really blew up after that. It got lame, unfortunately. At least Morbid Angel stuck with death metal, though, for the most part, until that weird 2011 album, whatever that was. I don't even know if that's even officially a part of their catalog anymore. They need to blow it up. It's a good comedy album, though. But so yeah, that was the ancient part. I wanted to talk about Death and Morbid Angel, and then of course the Executioner and Atheist or Ravage, Executioner, Obituary, Ravage, Atheist, those are some cool Florida classic bootlegs that I have that I wanted to kick off. And now we're going to get into the main part of the show. All right, we're going to kick this off with Killing Addiction. And I've talked about them, my old beat up Killing Addiction demo. I'm surprised the case is still intact, but all timer. Try to get that glare off of there. Yeah, this case is kind of fucked up. But some demos I had to get new cases for over the years and recently, but yeah, some of them there's just no way. Not going to buy bulk cases. It's just too expensive. We got no time for that. We were in contact with them through EOG. So yeah, I talked about Killing Addiction. They did the Necrosphere 7-inch with Seraphic Decay last episode. So this is the demo, and this is the Legacies of Terror demo. 1990. This is their second demo. And what they did is they put the 89 demo on the other side of this. And there's 4 songs on here: Nothing Remains, Well of Souls, Condemned, and Necrosphere. So a couple of those songs ended up on the 7-inch. But I love this demo, man. So yeah, like I said, we were in contact with them with the OG. I think Bart was originally writing to them. And what would happen was if either of us got bombarded with letters and we got busy with stuff, then we would tell each other, hey, could you write to this band, write back to them, da da da. So, it was a partnership or whatever. So Bart got really busy at one point, and I think he had to move. He changed houses. He went from one house to another. So he gave me this box full of letters to respond to. And I got in contact with somebody from Killing Addiction. I don't remember who. So yeah, they did the Necrosphere 7-inch after this, like I said, and then they had the Omega Factor album. Yeah, the Omega Factor album on Jail America, which was cool. That label kind of had a cheesy reputation, but Morpheus Descends was on there. Disastrous Murmur, Mortuary from Mexico. They did a really cool Pyogenesis release. Nocturnal, Nothing But Hatred. Excruciation. Acheron was on there, who I'm going to talk about in a bit. And Deteriorate, Excruciating Pain, Organic Infest, Malicious Onslaught, Vicious Cycle. I mean, there was actually a lot of good releases on Jail America. But yeah, it just kind of, they signed the deal with Osmos too to do a bunch of really cool Osmos things here in America. So a lot of the stuff like Blasphemy, Immortal, Impaled Nazarene, Master's Hammer, Samael, Beharit. They worked with Turbo Music too. I think Jail America and Turbo were connected sub-labels or whatever. I don't know who owned who. Turbo, I think, was based in Europe. So maybe that was the parent company. But Turbo was kind of another cheesy label too, but they put out good shit. They did that Beharit picture disc, Shape picture disc. Very cool. I got that somewhere. But anyways, Killing Addiction worked with Jail America, and that's a killer album. Killing Addiction, they had a bit of a more of like an Eastern Seaboard sound mixed with some Finnish and Swedish stuff, to be honest with you. So they definitely had a Morbid Angel influence, but they tuned a little lower. The vocals were a little lower. So they kind of reminded me of like a heavier, heavy death band in a sense. And they were one of the early ones to do that style too, where it was just like really sludgy, kind of, mixed with Morbid Angel mixed with Rotravor or something, They definitely, like I said, they had the Morbid Angel influence, but they had a little bit of immolation, incantation influence, and similar to Morpheus, who changed into Morpheus Descends. But it was pretty cool too. My buddy Jason from Gravehill, Jason Bumby, he's from Florida. So he had mentioned seeing these guys in a backyard playing a heavy metal backyard party. So that's fucking awesome. I can't imagine seeing Killing Addiction in a backyard, man. Because we had backyards with sadistic intent and demolition and entity and stuff, and that was amazing. So it'd be similar. In Florida, that's their version in a backyard. So they had backyard parties, and if Jason rolled up to the keg and there's Killing Addiction, man, that'd be fucking awesome. They are still active too. They're putting stuff out still. I think they're doing more stuff with Extreme Music. That's Dave Rotten's label over in Spain. They had a newer album that came out. But yeah, I wanted to kick off the Florida death metal demos with the Killing Addiction Legacies of Terror. It's one of my favorites, and definitely for this monumental episode and historic chat about the Florida death metal underground, I had to add Killing Addiction in here. So yeah, because they're killer, and not a lot of information and pictures out there. Here's a kind of a rough picture of the demo, Legacies of Terror. Then I found a band photo of the boys hanging out in the swamps, getting ready to death metal it up, like I like to say. So yeah, classic stuff. They formed all the way back in 1988 in Ocala, Florida. I think I forgot to mention that. So they were, I didn't do my geography research. I don't know where Ocala is compared to Tampa, but it's kind of like Sweden. There's most activity was in Stockholm, but there's other parts of the country. So there might be other parts of Florida that, because I know Jacksonville and even Miami had some activity, but most of the bands we're talking about today seem to be in the Tampa region. But Killing Addiction was fucking awesome. Definitely a killer band and a killer demo. So that's kicking off our main, like I said, main meat of the Florida death metal scene. We kicked off with Killing Addiction. All right, next up, Malevolent Creation with the 1990 demo. So this is a very legendary Florida band. And I also got a live tape. This is a bootleg that Bart and I made with the band's permission because we were friends. I'll get into that. But yeah, they played this. I'll talk about the tour that they did in 91. Pretty legendary. But see, I personally wrote to Brett Hoffman. Rest in peace, Brett. Really cool guy. I think Bart was in contact with Phil Fasciana. And yeah, we knew those guys. And I forget how I got Brett's address because I know that most people wrote to Phil. He was, he's still the main guy in the band and I think he's the only original member now at this point. But yeah, I wrote to Brett. And years later, when Malevolent got back together and Brett was back in the band, I think it was 2010 or 2011, something like that. And they did a tour with Exodus, and they played the observatory / the Galaxy here in Orange County, Santa Ana. Some of you might be familiar with that venue. It's a decent venue down in Orange County. And I was able to get backstage and saw Brett coming off one of the buses with a 6-pack of beer, just kind of roaming around, and went up to him, introduced myself, and he just fucking, whoa, what the fuck? You know what I mean? He remembered me. So it was just crazy. I don't know how often, he would run into people like that, old farts that used to pen pal with him and shit like that. But yeah, no, it was cool, man. And we caught up for a bit. I didn't want to fucking bug him too much, Looked like they performed. They were fucking awesome that night too. They fucking blew Exodus out of the water. It was like a bunch of local thrash bands, and Malevolent Creation just leveled that place. And yeah, so it was cool catching up with Brett, and always really cool guy. And rest in peace, Brett, because yeah, he did pass away, unfortunately. But it started off with the 90 demo. So yeah, this is from the guys. I've seen all kinds of different colors of the demo itself, the covers. Not sure how many there are, the variants out there, but I've got friends that have the demo or had it, and it was all kinds of different colors: blue, red, white, black and white. So pretty cool. This live tape, Bart and I made. So this was at, believe it or not, there was this little tiny club in Placentia, Fullerton, which is my area. This is where I live now, Northeast Orange County, California. There was a place called Goodies Nightclub. Total shithole, very small, run down. So Malevolent Creation, Devastation, and Demolition Hammer fucking played at this little place that we recorded the Malevolent, because I think we knew the Demolition Hammer guys, and we got that demo at one point, and then Devastation fucking ruled. We were always big fans of theirs. And on this night, Malevolent Creation took the show. I think they were the best band. There was another time that I think it was the same tour, but Demolition Hammer wasn't on the LA date for whatever reason. They didn't play the Waters Club in San Pedro. That night, Devastation annihilated the place. And I mean, Malevolent was awesome, but I thought Devastation was the best band that night. So they toured together, and it was, like I said, Devastation, Malevolent Creation, Demolition Hammer was on some dates, because some of the flyers that I'm going to show you about that are in a bit, or don't have Demolition Hammer on there. So they must have joined the tour at, different dates, maybe a different leg or whatever. I don't know. They Demolition Hammer didn't play San Pedro from what I remember. It was just Devastation and Malevolent Creation. But like I said before, Devastation blew away Death too a few years earlier, and they were just known for handing bands their asses. So if you brought Devastation on tour, those fuckers were going to nail you, till Texas death thrash at its finest, Signs of Life and Idolatry, and fucking brutal. But there's a cool old picture of the boys. So yeah, they had a definitely kind of started off a little thrashy, right? So their form of death metal was more death thrash, definitely you could tell they were really into Pleasure to Kill, and they had that kind of sound at first. And then, they obviously got heavier and involved into more of a death metal band. But, they always had a cool thrashy element to them, I thought. And then here's the classic band photo of the guys. Really cool. Hanging out somewhere down there in Florida. And then I found a old fanzine that they got Morgoth on there, and then there's Malevolent. There's that same picture I just showed you. So there's Cerebral Holocaust. That's a classic fanzine. I got that one somewhere. But Atheist, Sadist, Massacra, Phantasm, Morgoth, Malevolent Creation, really cool. So $5. And then here, I don't know if this is the interview that's in there or not, but there's a classic Malevolent Creation layout. I was able to interview Brett for Extinction of God too. I think we printed it, used it from what I remember, but I'll have to look into that. I want to do a show on that too, so I'm going to keep that separate. But yeah, classic stuff. So yeah, that really cool little Malevolent Creation tape collection that I have here of the good stuff. We just took the 90 demo and actually just the skull from the 90 demo, and then separated the logo in half. You can see the logo set up on the demo. We just took the skull, broke up the logo, and then put live. Used the same thing. Yeah, the guys were cool with it. It's not like we're making a bunch of money off of it. You know what I mean? I think we even gave them copies of it. So they were formed in 1987 in Fort Lauderdale. They were originally from Buffalo, New York. So Malevolent Creation, Cannibal Corpse, a couple other bands were originally from Buffalo. They ended up, a couple of them stayed up there, I guess, like Baphomet and whatnot. Malevolent and Cannibal moved down to Florida to, when the death metal thing popped off, they moved down there. And it was really cool when Gravehill played Day of Death up in Buffalo in 2012. Brian drove us around and gave us a tour of like where all these guys used to stay. Oh yeah, this is where Chris Barnes went to school. This is where Phil, grew up. That's his old house. This is Phil's, Brian, it was really cool. And yeah, that's where, Brett grew up, and just showed us all these haunts, these old clubs that were long abandoned or just, became something else, tore down, something else. There's like a Pizza Hut there now, or a Starbucks or whatever, so really cool little tour of the Buffalo death metal underground stuff there. And we got to see a couple of the old haunts of Malevolent Creation, so that was cool. And this demo 1990 has 3 songs, and they all ended up on the 10 Commandments classic album. And April of 1990, so Withered Decay, Decadence Within, and Impaled Existence. But this is when they started getting a little heavier compared to the early stuff, apparently. And still killer, And they are still active right now. I know, like I said, Phil's the only member. They have 13 albums. I was tripping out when I saw that. I read that. I was like, wow, no shit. But I wanted to show you some of the flyers of that tour I was talking about. Yeah, so the tour, this was a show that I actually went to. So I saw Malevolent a few times on this tour, but this up north is legendary. So on that tour, they made it up to the Omni in Oakland, and they were able to play with the Accused, Epidemic, and Immortal Fate. And God, Immortal Fate, I thought, pretty much crushed the show. And Epidemic was awesome too. So, I mean, you have Epidemic, Demolition Hammer, and Devastation, just 3 of the ultimate death thrash bands of all time. And then the Accused were just incredible live. They were great too. Every single band was fucking awesome. Malevolent was awesome. And yeah, it's just look at that lineup. That's just crazy. Yeah, but that's we would travel up to the Bay Area periodically to go to shows up there too. If there was friends in town or just bands that we loved, we wanted to see, we'd go follow Morbid Angel or Entombed up there or something like that. And then here's a couple others. The Lucky Horseshoe. Yeah, some of this is getting cut off. So there's Demolition Hammer on that. I wasn't really sure where the Lucky Horseshoe is. If any of you are familiar with that or familiar with this flyer, let me know. Some of the I couldn't find, because some of these venues are long gone, obviously, which happens. This is cool. This is one of the, I guess it was Metal Mania at that point, the 5th annual Milwaukee Metal Fest. So Malevolent's on there with a bunch of heavy hitters. That was really cool. So that's part of the tour, because then you could see Devastation down there and Demolition Hammer. So that tour got hooked up with Milwaukee Metal Fest, so that's cool. And then here is the Festival of Death up in, this was Virginia, I believe. And this is the album release party. So I assume this is 10 Commandments, but yeah, Horror of Horrors and Witch Hunt. And then Forbidden, I assume that's the thrash band, Forbidden Evil. Awesome. But then there's Deceased. Killer. Fucking one of my favorites, fucking Kingy and the boys. So that's awesome. But yeah, it's a release party for Malevolent, and quite a lineup they got there. Probably a lot of local heavy hitters. And then here's another one from the tour that I've been talking about. The Ritz Music Hall. When I was doing my research, there's a handful of those historically throughout America. So again, if you're familiar with this, some band called Drop Dead, Scourging Zombies. But yeah, I have no clue where this show took place, but brutal tour. If you're able to check that out, definitely got lucky. Let's see. Here's another one. This is in Wisconsin with More to Scold and Nothing Sacred. I think that's what that says. But yeah, brutal stuff. And then this was in Kansas. Dead Orchestra, because I have their demo, and Apostasy. I have both those demos. So I was familiar with those Kansas bands. That's brutal. And You Name It is the venue. July. Brutal stuff. And then another Milwaukee Metal Fest picture. And this is the infamous one with Keanu was there. Deicide headline because they were just totally blown up and all over the place. And Dogstar played. I remember that band with the kids. I didn't go to this, but I had some buddies that went. But yeah, look at that lineup. Nuclear Death, Epidemic, Suffocation, Baphomet, Macabre, Impetigo, Phantasm. Let's see. Flam, Mythic. Just mentioned the bands that I like. Paradise Lost. Yeah. Good shit. But yeah, so Malevolent played that too. Classic Florida stuff. Rest in peace, Brett. I love the 1990 demo. Nice raw death thrash, but killer stuff. All right. Yeah, a couple of these bands, I was able to find a lot of like old flyers and old pictures, because they're pretty legendary in that sense. And some of them even kind of, considered mainstream now at this point. They're pretty famous and well known. Some of these bands are like really, really unknown and, heavy underground. Only the hardcore creeps and sickos like me know about them. But another legendary band from Fort Lauderdale, formed in 1984, is Hellwitch. And I got some really cool Hellwitch tapes, and we will get into them. Boom. Pat is a legend. That's him in the center. They're still at it. He's the only remaining guy. 1984. It just kind of blew my mind. Just absolute legends, man. And all the guys that have been in Hellwitch, over the years, including these guys. That stoner on the left, and the other dude there on the right that looks like he just got out of jail. But yeah, there's Pat, and the red shirt in the middle, and absolute legends, like I said. So Pat actually wrote to Bart, my partner in EOG, my buddy, and there's another cool picture of the dudes. Look at that. Yeah, fucking ready to rage, death thrash it up. If you know Hellwitch, they're like really crazy fast death thrash, very technical, crazy song titles and album titles that I don't even know what the hell the words mean half the time. I got to look them up. Get the thesaurus and the dictionary out, man, because Pat's he's a smart cookie. He's got some crazy stuff going on. But yeah, those pictures are classic. So Bart wrote to Pat, and they were doing a lot of tape trading. So I never wrote to Pat myself. He had one of the craziest. Not only did he have one of the craziest demo collections, he probably still does. Probably has 10 times more than most of us out there put together, because I'm sure he kept everything. And since he was around in the early 80s, he saw the birth of this stuff, so that's another example of why he's such a legend to us and so respected. Let's see. The Mortal Viral Decimation is the main one here. And I know that, there we go. So it's the red one. So yeah, this is a copy that Bart had made for me. So actually, all three of these are, like I said, because I didn't write to Pat myself. This is the Transgressive Sentience demo. See, it's getting wordier and wordier. Transgressive Sentience. And then this one is the Anthrophagy demo. And it's kind of got a Geiger design on there, one of the earlier ones. But yeah, the main one I want to discuss is my favorite, which is the Mortal Viral Decimation. And one of their greatest well-known songs, Nosferatu, is on this demo, and I love that song. The demo has 3 songs on it. It's from 1987, and I think it came out in June of 1987. And Yeah, so it's got the Degeneration intro into Nosferatu, which is, again, my favorite. And then Purveyor of Fear is another classic. And Pyphobic Seizure. I'm not even going to try to pronounce some of these fucking names, but the song fucking rules. I'm too much of a dummy, you know? So I'll skip that. So I don't have the Nosferatu demo itself from 1984. That was just something that I don't think Bart ever got that. We never got it. I don't even know if Pat likes hand that out, or probably really, really raw, like in a garage or something. Maybe he's ashamed of it. That's the type of stuff that I would want, actually, but I have no idea. I'm just kind of speculating. And but yeah, I was able to get these tape trader copies of 3 of the Hellwitch demos from back in the day. Sorry about the glare, trying to show that, but you know, you got the covers. They're still old and beat up, but pretty decent shape. Hellwitch fucking rules. Yeah, this one has the older logo, and then their logo started evolving a little bit into something closer to that. That's the one that they use today. This has the old one too. It's older. So yeah, so like I said, 1987, that demo, my favorite demo. Everybody knows the classic album on Wild Rags. I never tried to pronounce that either. That fucking album rules. So that was cool that Richard was able to put that out. And I did talk to Pat over the phone when I worked at Wild Rags. So, you know, when that whole album was coming out or whatnot, I was working there. So that was awesome. You know, we'll chat with Pat. Cool guy. And it's like, hey, I'm a big fan, man. You know, and he wasn't like, fuck you, put Richard on. You know, he was cool. So I was really fucking stoked that Hellwitch was on Wild Rags and able to get out there and, you know, part of the lineage of the classic Wild Rags records. It's actually underrated as far as I'm concerned. It's not talked about as much as some of those other ones, obviously. Impetigo, Blasphemy, Nuclear Death. Those are the darlings of that era, but there was some other cool shit too that got out there. And I ran into some cool flyers that Hellwitch was a part of. Look at that. Morbid Angel, Massacre, and Hellwitch. And this has got to be early on. And then look down there under Hellwitch, that's Executioner. So that's Obituary. That's fucking incredible, right? Those 4 bands together, and that's basically kind of Executioner's just coming up. You know, at this point, the other 3 bands had already been pretty much well established, you know. And I know originally Morbid Angel was from North Carolina. That was their base, but, you know, obviously they all resided in Florida later on, and that's where they really cut their teeth, so to speak. So, yeah, technically, you know, Morbid Angel wasn't born in Florida, but they, you know, they weren't in North Carolina very long. And same thing with Malevolent Creation. You know, they formed in Buffalo, but they came down. Same thing with Cannibal Corpse, you know. So we recognized them as Florida bands at that point, and they're still, you know, there. So, and then here's another gig. I think it's the same gig, just a different flyer, because there's Executioner again down at the bottom. Hideous Death, but really cool. Memorial Day weekend. Baroque recording artist. That was David Vincent's label back in the day, by the way. But yeah, there's the old Morbid Angel logo. That's cool. It's the shirt that I got. So legendary stuff, man. But yeah, Hellwitch. Pat's still at it. They did a newer record on Extreme Music a few years ago. Again, Dave Rotten's label. So Dave's keeping the old school death metal flag alive. And I think not too long ago they did something with Listenable Records too. Hellwitch did an album. So they originally broke up in 1998, but then reformed in 2004, and then the rest is history. You know, they're back at it. And the first time I actually heard Hellwitch was Nosferatu was on one of the Apocalyptic Things compilations. I'm going to do an episode on those tape compilations. My buddy Fred, still in contact with him on social media too. He popped up and he remembered me, and yeah, he's been watching. Hey, what's up, Fred? Because I think he watches Welcome to Hell channel. So, but yeah, he put. I think it was. You correct me, Fred, if I'm wrong, but they were on Apocalyptic Things #2. Nosferatu by Hellwitch was on there, and I have that. I was able to. I'm not going to show that today because I'm doing a different episode on those comp tapes. I decided not to include that on here, but I don't know. I guess I could have shown it real quick, but I had to get this going, you know. But yeah, Hellwitch fucking rules. Hails to Pat, and big part of the history of Florida death metal. All right, next up we have Eulogy. They are from the hotbed of death metal, the capital, Tampa, Florida. And they actually wrote to us to be a part of the zine and the comp. So we had a fanzine and a tape compilation that we put bands on as well. And we had different volumes of the comp too. We would do some local stuff, all local bands from LA and Orange County. And then we did some other stuff with international bands and then other states and whatnot. And yeah, and then they wanted the fanzine to review the demo. And what they did is they sent the demo over and just their logo on the cover, their awesome logo. There it is here. Let's see. There we go. So yeah, just their logo, really cool. One of the coolest logos I remember. I always liked this fucking logo a lot. Always wanted to get a shirt of that. But yeah, so this tape that they sent that I'm mentioning here had the 1992 Dismal demo on it. It's got 3 songs, the title track, Perish the Screams, and Chained Are Their Souls. Sorry if I forget to mention some of the songs of the past tapes or whatever, but tried to cover a lot of stuff here today. This is a monumental episode, but at least with Eulogy, I remembered there was a EP that they did called The Essence, and this EP is on the other side of this tape too. So that has a few songs on there, and that EP ended up on Cenotaph Records, which also put out Autumno, the Across the Horizon album. And they did some cool 7-inches, Ceremony, Human Remains, Ratravor, the Autumno Light of Day. They did that Gorefest Live Misery 7-inch. I'm going to include Cenotaph Records in a 7-inch stack episode combined with some other labels. We'll probably cover about 27 inches or whatever, and Cenotaph Records will be on there because I have a lot of those 7 inches as well. So Eulogy was formed in 1989. I forgot if I mentioned that, but yeah, so here's the boys here. Ready to get brutal. And yeah, the guy on the right's got a Eulogy shirt. That's cool. I have never seen one. So yeah, that fucking really heavy duty stuff. Very cool. So they broke up in 96, then reformed in 2007, and apparently they're still at it. Jarrett, the guitarist, I believe that's who we wrote to, because I'm going to talk about one of his other bands, Brutality, here shortly. And yeah, he was in Brutality. He was in Ex Mortis recently because Brian lives down there in Tampa now, the area. And I think, let's see, Clayton, the drummer, was also in Null Dynamo, which is a really killer and underrated band. My buddy Pan does that, but I guess Clayton helped Pan out with that project. That's a really fucking cool band. If you haven't looked up Null Dynamo, look it up. They got a release that rules. And Eulogy itself definitely sounds like a Florida death metal band, So if you like Morbid Angel, Brutality, Monstrosity, that style, then you'll dig Eulogy for sure. I always fucking thought they were fucking killer. They got their, obviously these bands have their own take on death metal, but yeah, this demo and the other EP on the other side, really cool stuff. And I wish I could play some of the music or whatnot, but like I said, I don't want to get in trouble with the copyright people on fucking YouTube. So go ahead and just do a search on Eulogy Dismal or Eulogy the Essence, and you will find out about these crazy motherfuckers. So yeah, fucking hails to Eulogy and to Jarrett. Thanks for sending the tape back in the day, man. We always dug it. Always dug it big time. So I want to do an Extinction of God show and get Bart on here too. I just have to like hunt down the tapes and kind of arrange that with him. And we got so much shit going on half the time, and I got so many other episodes that I want to do as well. So just going to have to fit it all together. So I'll have to see if Eulogy is part of one of the comps. I know that they definitely wanted to be on one. But yeah, killer band and killer recording. That's a killer demo. Look it up. Dismal by Eulogy. And the Essence too, the EP. All right. Well, speaking of Jarrett, his other band, Brutality. Sorry about the glare. There it is. Boom. And I got a couple of Brutality demos from Jarrett. So, yeah, let's chat about the mighty Brutality. They were formed all the way back to 1987. Again, Tampa. Obviously, it had a lot of hotbed death metal activity going on. And as I like to call it, death metal city, right? So actually with Brutality, I ended up, Jarrett had wrote to EOG, but I actually was in contact with Jeff, the bassist vocalist for Brutality. So they actually started off as like a 3-piece back in the day. They formed as Abomination back in 87, changed their name to Brutality, and they also were called Darkness too before they settled on Brutality. So just like looking at my little note I wrote here. What the hell? So yeah, they did 2 demos in 1988. I think they were really similar cover-wise, but it was kind of funny because this is the first recording I got from them. And I like that little warning there on the right. Warning, this product may cause gum disease and tooth loss. Gum disease, sorry. Gum disease. I'm reading it wrong. My eyes. Where's my mind going? My mind's in the gutter. Warning, this product may cause gum disease and tooth loss. Huh. So World War III is a kind of a famous Brutality song for sure. That's been on a few recordings, actually. It's really good. And I always thought that little warning thing, that hand-drawn logo is fucking brutal too. And then this was kind of funny. So back in the day, initially, here's this demo here with the dude on the front. Initially, so this image they used a couple times. They used it on this demo, Dimension Demented. And they also put it on a 7-inch, which I'll talk about later. I think that was Gore Records, which I'm going to do a Gore show too for 7-inch stacks. But this image, when I first saw it, I thought it was like a ninja, right? I was like, yeah, the guys in Brutality must really be into ninjas or something, And then I think when we were working on EOG, I was talking about that. Yeah, Brutality's got the ninja or whatever. But what the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, the fucking ninja. And he's like, isn't that supposed to be Dracula? And then I was like, wait a minute. And then, it's supposed to be like Vlad the Impaler. That's what that dude looked like. You look back in the history pictures, there's Vlad. So I had gone a while, even tape trading with Jeff, knowing, Jared or whatnot, thinking this was a fucking ninja on the goddamn demo and the 7-inch cover. So, yeah, shit happens. But, yeah, that was pretty funny. Just wasn't paying attention. Fucking probably stoned. But, yeah, that's Vlad. So, found some cool pictures of the guys too. Here's an old school one. This is like really early on when they were just a 3-piece, just getting going. But yeah, they started a little early as well. Classic. Looks like, I mean, I don't know if they have lights in their jam room, but maybe that was at a gig and they just took a picture before they were going to perform. This looks like a jam room picture of some sorts, or maybe one of their rooms. They're just fucking get ready to rage. That's really early on. So classic stuff. But yeah, I mean, Brutality ended up getting signed to Nuclear Blast. I think most of you are aware of who it is. There's 8 songs on here. It's on the Dimension Demented. It's a great demo. It's like a fucking album, you know. But like I said, you're familiar with Brutality. Very Floridian death metal. You know, if you like Monstrosity, Malevolent Creation, Morbid Angel, you know, it's kind of just that style. They kind of fed off each other. And it's not like they ripped each other off or anything, or they sounded too similar. I mean, eventually everybody was recording at More Sound and using Dan Seagrave as the artist or whatnot. Kind of got out of control, but, you know, Brutality always had a good sound. They had the Metamorphosis demo on Wild Rags too. I'm going to cover that in a separate episode. I didn't want to put that in here. So I have that demo as well. That's a great one. I'm going to do a Wild Rags demo episode, and I saved for that. I didn't even want to show it. So got the rules, man. And when I get it in my head, I gotta continue on that path. Otherwise I'll drive myself crazy. And yeah, they did 2 Killer 7 inches too. I'm going to be talking about those in a future episode. And yeah, I didn't even know they did 3 albums on Nuclear Blast. I just remember the first one, maybe the second one, maybe the first 2. They were good. You know, again, sometimes the albums are a little too clean for me, production wise or whatever, but they are they were active and inactive off and on. I think they're back together again doing some stuff. So but yeah, the 8 songs on the Demented demo here. You got the title track, which is an instrumental. Then Hell on Earth is a very known song that they've done on other releases. Lust for Sex, Ignitix, My First Night, Narcoticis Addictius, Frozen Amputee, and the aforementioned World War III. So good stuff. Brutality, definitely a classic Florida death metal band that I had to include on here, especially since a lot of people are familiar with them. So good stuff. Go check out the links. All this stuff should be up on YouTube here. All right. Speaking of Monstrosity, that's who's next. And this was the first demo that I got from them. Horror Infinity, Monstrosity, with the cheesy computerized old school printout. And they were formed in 1990, originally in Fort Lauderdale. Then they moved to Tampa, where all the shit was going down, right? You know, by this time, you know, Florida was off and running. Shit was just insane. You know, there was so many fucking bands coming out. And I ran across Monstrosity. There was a package that I got, and it might have been from one of these other guys, Brutality or Eulogy or whatever, one of the guys, and there was an ad for the Monstrosity demo, you know. So I wrote to Lee, Mr. Lee Harrison, great dude. He's still doing Monstrosity. I actually talked to him in person here in Los Angeles back in like 2008. They played Monstrosity, played Murderfest, so I was able to chat with him backstage. He remembered me. We didn't really chat for very long because they were about to go on, you know. So, but it was cool catching up with him real shortly. And let's see. So yeah, I got Lee sent the demo, 1990, Horror Infinity. It's got 4 songs: Definitive Inquisition, Immense Malignancy, the title track, Horror Infinity, and The Burden of Evil. And, you know, a lot of those songs are known. They've been on other releases, the album. But yeah, this demo is fucking badass. Definitely has again, sounds like a Florida death metal band. You know, definitely has the Morbid Angel influence, as, you know, not only people in Florida had that influence, people worldwide had it, but definitely down there when you're hanging out with those guys and they're fucking the elite, you're definitely going to sound like that. You know, you're going to be influenced by the top-notch band that's out there. I mean, that's why so many bands ripped off Entombed, and so many bands, you know, kind of have that sound. I'm not gonna say rip off, all right, influence, right? You know what I mean. But yeah, this is great. This is a great demo. And then there was a another cover that was done. This is the official cover that came out shortly after. I didn't get this from Lee. I got this from a tape trader a few months later. I was like, wait, what's that? And it said Horror Infinity on it, you know? And I was like, oh, yeah, my cover's just like some cheesy printout, you know, from a computer or something. And so, yeah, I just fucking death metal nerd had to have the other cover. And I mean, I know I keep saying, you know, the Florida sound or whatever, but it's true. You know, everybody knows the sound. It's very true. And by this time, it's one of the most famous or even infamous, dare I say, fucking death metal sounds. And the funny thing is, we all know Corpse Grinder, you know, the legendary singer of Cannibal Corpse now, but he was in Monstrosity originally. And first time I actually met him was the first tour he did with Cannibal Corpse. And the Cannibal was playing the Showcase Theater in Corona, which is out in the Ellen Empire down the 91 freeway for a while, all the way out there. And he kicked the side door open. I think he got into a confrontation with security. I don't know if they're roughing up a fan or what, but we're out there drinking beers. You know, we checked out Cannibal Corpse. I had already seen him a bunch of times by that time, so I was just catching up with friends outside. And I think it was Cannibal Corpse Immolation. And we were hanging out with some friends outside, drinking some beers in the parking lot. And Corpse Grinder, George, he kicks the fucking door open. And this huge guy comes out, you know, because everyone knows he's got that neck. He's much younger, but still a big dude, you know, and he's just fucking furious, man. So it was just kind of funny. And he came over and drank a beer with us. I don't know if they were done with their set, what was going on, but, you know, he just came over, pounded a beer, and then went back in. So it might have even been a break or something. I don't know. But I never got the full story on that. But, you know, he came over. We called him over and, you know, knew who he was, obviously. I knew him from the Monstrosity days, so that was interesting that he was singing for Cannibal Corpse, you know, because they had the falling out with Barnes, and the rest is history on that. Corpse Grinder took over at that point. I don't even remember what year that was, 96, 95, 96. But, yeah, he wasn't pissed off at us, thankfully. We gave him a beer. He was happy. What's up? Hey, this and that. Monstrosity ruled, and happy for you, yada, yada. So that was just a funny little story I wanted to add in there. They had, obviously, the Imperial Doom album is a classic, and I lost track of the Egg album after that, which was really good, too. Really good album. And I think they also did a couple of really cool 7-inches that I'm going to include on some other shows. They did one with Nuclear Blast, one with Relapse. I'm going to do 7-inch stacks episodes on both of those labels, too, eventually here. Just haven't had a whole hell of a lot of time, and I really wanted to do this Florida tape episode, so concentrated on that. But Millennium, yeah, the Egg album, Millennium, that's really good too. And I don't know what happened with Nuclear Blast, because that Egg album came out on Conquest Music. I don't know what the hell that was. That was the last album that had Corpse Grinder on it. I'm not familiar with the Monstrosity material after that, but also Lee sent me, I guess this is apparently pretty rare. This is their like 93, 94 demo or something like that. Really good. There's 3 songs on here, but I don't know a lot of people that have this one. The Horror Infinity demo just got everywhere. It was spread all over like crazy. And this one, not so much, you know, but it's really good. Really good stuff. Just want to make sure I'm showing it right. Yeah. It's like 93, 94, somewhere around there. You know, death metal was kind of changing up a little bit. Obviously, Corpse Grinder had moved on. He's on this, though. He's on this other demo recording, the second demo. So good stuff. You could look it up again. As much as I really want to play links, I just not going to risk getting the copyright crap and get the video taken down. You know, I'm on a roll here. Haven't had any issues at this point. So, but yeah, go check it out. But yeah, Monstrosity, yet another classic Florida band. I will share some pics real quick. The Babies, and I think Corpse Grinder's wearing a Eulogy shirt. That might be another Eulogy. I don't know. The logo looks a little bit different, but I'm not sure. There's Lee on the right. And then another classic. That's with the 5-piece now at this point. So with the classic Amon shirt, that's awesome. But yeah, Monstrosity, classic Florida death metal. You guys, everybody already knows what they sound like, who they are. You know, just wanted to talk about some of their classic tapes from back in the day. All right, next up, we have a band that's kind of similar to Necrovore, where they only literally recorded the one demo, but are just unbelievably legendary. And I don't think this band is exactly on that same level of like cult status or whatever, but they're up there. Incubus, the Floridian Incubus, fucking one of my all-time favorites, one of the best demos ever recorded. And they only have these 3 songs. And this came out on the demo and a 7-inch. We'll talk about the 7-inch another time. But 1986, they were formed. So they ended up in Tampa. So they're Tampa by way of Atlanta, Georgia. So the actual Incubus formation began in Atlanta, Georgia. And then this classic demo, 1987, self-titled. God died on his knees, reanimators, mutilations, and engulfed in unspeakable horror. Fuck yeah. So this begins a little trifecta. The next 3 bands are kind of all interconnected with members and all this stuff. So a lot of these legends here all kind of formed superpowers in some of these projects, and then they went on to break off and do their own, you know, their own stuff. And some of these guys are connected to Morbid Angel and whatnot. So yeah, really, really cool. I got this from Rafael Rivera. I've talked about him before. He was an infamous tape trader and bootlegger, and he'd go to shows and stuff. And this was probably 90, 91 when I ran into him at a show, and he had a box. And of course, me and Bart, my buddy Robert, always wanted tapes. So what do you got? What do you got? You know, so I bought this from him because I didn't have it. So this is not an original. It's a Rafael Rivera bootleg. And just the one legendary demo, you know. But so yeah, Incubus started in Atlanta by Mr. Sterling von Scarborough on bass and vocals. So he had a dude named Scully there who was also on Hallows Eve from Georgia, which were badass. But then Sterling decided to move to Florida to join Morbid Angel. So that's where he met Mike Browning. And then, you know, Mike and Sterling had a falling out with Morbid Angel. And Sterling basically told Mike, hey, let's reform Incubus. And they got Gino Marino, another Floridian legend. And they did this demo. So it was Sterling, Mike, and Gino that did this. At one point, later on, Mike and Gino left Incubus to form Nocturnus. So yeah, all this stuff's all connected, you know. Sterling then went back to Atlanta. He tried to reform Incubus, but it didn't work. I think there was a recording. They did one demo, but I've never seen it. Oh, they changed the name to Usurper too. So I'll have to look that up. Never got a copy of that. Never even heard it, but it was Scully, you know, the aforementioned original member of Incubus, and also Rich, who was also an original member of Incubus there in Georgia, but they decided to call it Usurper. And they did that one demo. So Yeah, the 7-inch version of this legendary tape is on Gore Records, and that came out in '89. Like I said, I'm going to do a Gore Records 7-inch stacks episode. I'll talk about that because having these crazy songs, killer songs on vinyl is always awesome. And this design here with the logo and the upside down cross and everything, I actually had first seen this from one of the obituary guys was wearing this shirt in the photo shoot that they did for Slowly We Ride, you know, that period. And it was like in Power Metal magazine. I opened it up, which is one of the magazines at the time that was out there on newsstands. And you know, Power Metal and Metal Forces, those were the two that I always get imported. The import magazine section at Tower Records, they had those. And then a little later on, Metal Maniacs started getting, because there was that really lame Metal Edge magazine that covered all the glam stuff and the cock rock, and I wasn't really into that. But Metal Maniacs was an offshoot of Metal Edge, you know, because thrash started getting bigger and more popular. Obviously, Metallica blew up and so on and so forth. So, and then little by little, Metal Maniacs started covering death metal and grindcore and stuff like that. So, yeah. So, anyways, I saw the obituary, one of those dudes wearing the Incubus shirt, and I was like, oh, that's fucking great. So that's when I started seeing the 7-inch around. Initially, I bought the 7-inch first when that came out, 89, 90. And then, like I said, I got this from Rafael Rivera. Actually, the sound's actually pretty good. He was a decent bootlegger in that sense, so he made good quality stuff. But yeah, rest in peace to Sterling and Gino. Both of those legendary Florida death metal legends have passed away. So thanks, guys. You know, and Mike Browning, too, one of the most legendary figures in Florida death metal. Thank you for Incubus. I absolutely fucking love this recording. And here is a quick picture of the dudes. Gino on the left, Sterling in the middle, and Mike on the right. Incubus. Classic stuff. I mean, what a storm of awesomeness in this little period of time that they were able to do, you know. Part of the legendary history of Florida death metal. And I mean, hey, they came and went really quick, but they left a fucking everlasting mark, because I know most underground freaks that I know absolutely fucking worship this demo, you know, fucking this recording. So good shit. Hails to the fucking mighty Incubus from Florida. All right, the next band is the second band in this trifecta of interconnected bands that I mentioned. And this is one of the greatest demos ever recorded, Nocturnus, The Science of Horror. I heard estimates that there was like 3,000 of these made, but it's got to be closer to 10,000. I think Browning is underestimating his count, because everybody had this motherfucker. I got this at Wild Rags, I believe. Richard was stocking it. It was very popular. And like Martin Van Drunen was wearing the shirt on Consuming Impulse. I know the Autopsy guys wearing this shirt. There was a lot of brutal death metal heads that were known out there, even album pictures, but demo pictures too, were wearing this Nocturnus shirt, you know, the white shirt with the logo on there, and basically was made in conjunction with this demo. I never got one, unfortunately, the shirt, but I did get the demo, and I got it from Wild Rags. Yeah, so, I mean, Mike Browning is an absolute death metal legend, you know, in general, especially Florida. They were formed in 87. I went over a little bit of the history in the prior, you know, the Incubus portion. I don't have the first demo. I always wanted a copy of it. Excuse me, but yeah, I never got the first demo, but got the Science of Horror, the legendary demo that everybody and their mother had back in the day. This is the second demo, number 2, the Science of Horror, released in 1988. 4 songs, all very known. BC/AD, Standing in Blood, Neolithic, and Undead Journey, all classics. And real quick too, it was weird. I saw some, like, there was some, I wasn't even aware of any of this. So there was some weird drama between some of the members kicking Mike out, and at a certain point in the 90s, and just weird having Nocturnus without Mike. So the remaining members decided to move forward with it. I don't know how that worked or whatever. I know they formed another band, changed the name, and then Mike was unable to use the Nocturnus name by itself, but he does Nocturnus AD now, and he plays the classic, the Key and the Thresholds stuff, I'm sure. And he's doing albums, and they're active. They're playing festivals, releasing albums. So, good for Mike. Like I said, he's a legend, and there's some cool. I got a bunch of pictures to talk about because Nocturnus had a lot of stuff out there. So this is a classic. The guys, that's when they were a 4-piece. So this is the demo era because they ended up being a 5-piece eventually for the Key and all that. Now, I'm not a big fan of the Key or Thresholds, to be honest with you. It's not really my thing. I just like the really dark, foreboding sound on this demo. That's why I like it so much. It's got, some of the same songs, but it just has a dark, evil tinge to it, like that early Morbid Angel stuff. Probably recorded the same way. There's another classic demo era picture. Here's a really old one. And that's got Vincent Crowley in there from Acheron, which I'm going to talk about next. But the third band in the trifecta. But look at that old logo. I saw a friend of mine. She's an artist over in Europe, and she had a shirt with that logo, the old Nocturnus logo on there. And I was like, what the fuck? That's amazing. Somebody must have bootlegged it over there or something. That's fucking killer. But so, yeah, Nocturnus ended up taking Bolt Thrower's place on the Grind Crusher tour. I was able to print some of the flyers out, but there's the flyer there. This is the legendary Napalm Death show at the Country Club. And Earache Combat, Napalm Death, Godflesh, Nocturnus, and then the locals, Death Cult, Vehemence, and Sarcastic. And we were confused why those, hey, nothing against those bands, right? But where's Sadistic Intent, Demolition, and Entity on there? And those are the heavy hitters that we had. Excruciating Terror, definitely Excruciating Terror should have been playing with Napalm Death, man. That just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, Bolt Thrower, they got pissed off, supposedly at America or whatever on their first tour, and they weren't coming back. They didn't come back for many years until like 2013. But so we got Nocturnus, and like I said, by this time they just the Key was out, so the Napalm and Godflesh just obliterated the place. And actually, Napalm played. Barney was sick. They were still amazing, but they had to put Godflesh last because Barney was just exhausted, and Godflesh ended up playing last. Half the people left. But yeah, this show's legendary. If you got video footage of it, you could see all the stage diving. They were letting, first they were trying to fight the people from getting on stage, but it was just a losing cause by security. So they just ended up allowing people just to come up and stage dive and let the energy out in that way. And then at the end of the set, the entire crowd basically just rushed the stage. And that's an insane picture that I found. That's Jesse Pintado right there in the middle with the guitar. That's the crowd, basically. Half of the crowd ended up on fucking stage and just, fucking rocking out. Napalm killed it. And there's Jesse fucking rocking out. He's playing. They're playing. That's not in between songs. That's fucking during a goddamn Napalm Death song. And there was a lot of violence. Somebody died at this show. They got stabbed. So we had a lot of gangsters at shows back in the day. The Country Club was super violent. Fenders, real violent in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, somebody unfortunately died. There was a lot of fights. It was hard to keep track of what was going on. And I had just got really stoned with my buddy Robert from Nero One and Ruin and Carlos from Demolition. He had a really good joint of some skunk weed. Everybody remember all you old farts, the skunk weed, right? So that was the original Chronic, basically. It was really potent stuff. And it just blew my mind, man. I got so fucking stoned and watched Napalm Death and Godflesh. And it was crazy seeing this stuff. But yeah, Nocturnus played that night. I just want to share that picture. It's pretty cool. Nocturnus played that night. They kind of opened up the tour, the Grind Crusher tour section of the tour after the local bands, and then Napalm, and then Godflesh. So yeah, by that time, like I said, I wasn't really into Nocturnus. I haven't heard the Nocturnus AD stuff. I haven't heard the other band that the other guys did, but I do like the Science of Horror demo. Fucking all-time classic. And I got some other flyers. Yeah, let's see. Some cool flyers to share real quick. So there's Amon. They later became Deicide, obviously. There's Nocturnus and Atheist. So that's a cool Metal Monday. That's not a bad Metal Monday, right? We usually just get like regular old local bands at our Metal Mondays. Holy shit. But this is Florida, man. It's fucking the hotbed, right? Death Metal Capital. And then there's a cool old Nocturnus logo with death, 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 death. Combat recording artists. So yeah, that's classic, right? $4 cover for Death of Nocturnus. Fucking take me back. Look at the directions on the bottom right. It's an upside down cross too. How fitting. All you need is Morbid Angel on there. And then so here's Nocturnus, really old logo, and Executioner. And look at the logo there. It's kind of developing into the Obituary logo. That's really cool. Fatal Blessing. Never heard that band, but I have to look them up. But yeah, artwork's cool, you know. And then here's a cool one. Morbid Angel and Nocturnus, New Year's Eve thrash. You can tell that is pretty old school death metal because a lot of the promoters and whatnot were calling it thrash. They were just, oh, this is thrash metal. It's like, nah, this is something different, guys. This is something different. So there's some classic flyers, man. And classic demo. Nocturnus, The Science of Horror, one of the all-timers. So you already know what it is. You've heard it. You heard it. And I'm sure a lot of you are Nocturnus fans out there. All right, moving right along. This is the third band in the trifecta, all connected. And of course, I was talking about Vincent Crowley earlier, and we have Acheron. I got 2 Acheron tapes from back in the day. The Rites of the Black Mass demo in the 1990. Let's see, what is this? Future releases, it says, or whatever, but it's got a bunch of stuff on there. So Bart, again, my buddy, my partner in Extinction of God, he was writing to Vince, and I got these from Bart. Vince had sent some extra copies. So these are originals, apparently. So, you know, they were doing tape trading and corresponding and whatnot. Bart and I were definitely influenced in Satanism back in the day, as any, like, you know, young heavy metal kid would be. And we were definitely thinking about joining the Church of Satan at one point because it appealed to us. You know, we never actually did, but Vince was a reverend. So, you know, he was giving guidance to Bart about all that stuff. And then Bart would talk to me about it. And we were definitely interested because there was some Satanists that were around Anaheim that we were in contact with, metalhead Satanists, the actual Satanists. So we were, you know, they weren't recruiting us. They were just, you know, we would chat with them about it, and they liked underground metal too, you know, like Blasphemy and Rotting Christ and stuff like that. We would tape trade with those guys too. Pretty cool dudes. A little bit more quiet, you know, I don't know if it was the Satanism or whatever, you know, and then we just kind of started focusing on other stuff. So we never joined, but there was an interest there and got a lot of respect for Satanism with the Satanic Bible and all that stuff, and the writings of Anton LaVey. Very, very interesting stuff. If you get a chance, look into it. But yeah, so Acheron was the third band in this trifecta that I was talking about. They're formed in 1988 in Tampa, and this demo, Rites of the Black Mass, was their 4th demo, and it was recorded in 91. And I believe this came out prior to that, and it's got a bunch of stuff that Vince had put on there for Bart and I. So yeah, Rites of the Black Mass, I mean, it's like basically an album, and hey, it became an album, you know, later. So it's got a bunch of songs, 10 songs. To thee we confess, thou art Lord. Ah, Satanus, summoning the Master, one with darkness. Prayer of hell, unholy praises. Cursed Nazarene, the Enochian key and let us depart. So 30 minutes, for a demo that was long, but yeah, killer stuff. So basically, like I said, it's like an album. Oh, wait a minute. It did become an album. Ha, ha, ha. So both the demo and the album are the same songs, but the album, Rites of the Black Mass, was re-recorded. And of course, those infamous interludes and intros and outros and stuff like that, which are amazing. So it gave the album this just haunting fucking atmosphere. I love the demo, obviously, but the album version is fucking cool too. If you just want to hear the raging songs on their own, then check out the demo, and it's very raw, very fucking cool. And yeah, this has a bunch of recordings on there that Vince and the guys were doing, his band members at the time. And yeah, the album version came out in 1992, and both the demo and a lot of this stuff, but the Rites demo and album were both recorded at Morris Sound by Scott Burns. So it's interesting. And if you listen closely, I mean, I think they tweaked it. I think Vince probably did that on purpose, to kind of stand out from what was going on death metal wise all over, especially in Florida, right? Like I talked about. Acheron definitely had their own sound though. They definitely had a black metal influence, and which they embraced even more over the years later on. And but they're still death black metal band. They kind of were the one of the bands back then that were unique. They kind of straddled that line. And with the interludes later on the album version of Rites, they did that moving forward for a few albums too, with the intro song, interlude, all the way down to the outro and whatnot. But there's always some creepy, evil interlude music going on that was, like I said, a really good atmosphere to it. So yeah, this promo from 1990 has a couple of the album songs, and it's got 2 of the demos from 1989 on there. So he just kind of did a compilation for us. And like I said, Vince was a member of the Church of Satan. He ended up leaving at one point, just wasn't really into that, what was going on with the church. I remember reading an interview where he just didn't like the direction it was going, with the greed and whatnot. Don't quote me on that. I think that's basically the gist of it. I ended up meeting Vince in person finally in 2009 when Gravehill was out there for New Jersey Death Fest, and Acheron was playing. So it was cool. We were at the bar, kind of just having a couple beers, chatting, and I was like, "Hey, dude, it's an honor to meet you, man. Another, like I said, a death metal legend from Florida. I know that Vince lives up in Pennsylvania. He moved around a little bit, Ohio, Pennsylvania. So he's up there, up in the cold. He's out of Florida, but yeah, he's been doing Acheron up there. I know he was really active. Gravehill played with them quite a few times. We did Central Illinois Metal Fest with them. I think we might have done a Maryland Death Fest with them, but they've been active. I think he ended Acheron at one point and then just focused on the Vincent Crowley band because he has his own thing too. But I think Acheron's back because I saw them on a flyer, and I think they're only playing old songs. I don't think they're going to do any new music. I think he's just going to do Vincent Crowley. I haven't heard that stuff. I was in contact with him on social media a few years ago, and I lost contact with him. I think he ditched his account or something, but I haven't talked to him in a while. But I got to catch up with Vince, man. He's a really cool guy, and I appreciate his legendary status in the Florida death metal realm and beyond now, because he's up in Pennsylvania now too. So he's just a legend in general. And there is we ended up getting a videotape at one point from Pat from Hellwitch, which this is all connected with the Florida guys, right? But so Pat had a really extensive VHS, videotape list. So did Steve-O too, but from Ibitigo. So we'd trade with him. But Pat sent Bart a tape that had footage on there of Vince and one of his other Acheron band members at the time going in to talk to Bob Larson, who was like a religious dork. He was like an evangelist type guy, TV radio evangelist who was like obsessed with the evils of rock music. He was a total dipshit, and we all used to rag on him back in the day. I think eventually Glenn Benton went on his show, and Glenn used to call him from tour and cuss him out and shit. And then I saw like an interview where Glenn's like, yeah, we have this weird friendship, at this point. We just talk shit to each other and this and that. And yeah, Bob's a dork. But it's Vincent and his guitarist Bruce at the time had a really hilarious chat I'm going to show some footage real quick. And hopefully this doesn't get tagged on the copyright. I don't think it will. But it's really funny. So Bob's on there. And like when he first goes in there, he goes to shake Vince and the other dude's hand, and they just say, no, we don't shake the hand of the enemy. Oh, you won't shake my hand? Oh, whatever. Yeah, this and that. Starts whining. It's really funny. And they're just like, yeah, fuck off, dude. And so, yeah, at one point, too, Glenn was saying that, yeah, Bob Larson, he makes a bunch of money so he can spend it on all the hookers that he buys and whatnot. So I don't know how true that is. That'd be pretty funny. Anyways, here's like a minute or so of the interview. Check it out.
You guys didn't write this song especially for me, did you, Mr. Vincent Brutality, huh? Did you? Well, did you? You've called upon a Baden in this, did you?
I didn't write the lyrics to the song. Vincent Crowley
Vincent Crowley, you didn't write this for me, did you?
Actually, it's taken from the Black Mass, so it's kind of just taken from an actual ritual, so it comes straight from the heart.
Now, for those of you who couldn't hear those words, it says, in unholy fellowship we praise and honor thee, Lucifer, Beelzebub, Belial, Leviathan, Asmodeus, and Abaddon. And for those of you who have read my new book, Abaddon, you know that Asmodeus and Abaddon are principal demons in the book.
Yeah, just you imagine. I don't know how those guys sat down with that fucker for so long. Yeah, I don't know if Vince tolerated him. That voice, fucking Bob Larson, man. Yeah, if you look up a lot of his all that dorks on YouTube too, you can check it out. But anyways, that was just a funny memory of Acheron. So had to throw that in there. Like I said, hopefully it doesn't get dinged with the goddamn copyright shit. But Rites of the Black Mass. Good stuff. 1990 rehearsals. Part of my classic Florida collection that I wanted to include on here. So hails to Vince and Acheron, and hopefully I'll get to catch up with them soon. But real quick, here's a classic picture. That's got Mike Browning in it. I think this is a little bit later in the 90s, in the mid-90s, because I think Mike joined for a little bit. So he rejoined forces with Vince to do some Acheron stuff and played on a record or two, I believe. But there's some classic flyers. 1992, Deicide, Disincarnate, which that is James Murphy's band. Brutality, Acheron, Burial. They're pretty badass. Almost forgot, too. I'm going to mention this demo real quick. Just show it. I'm not going to talk about it. But here is another show real quick. Morbid Angel, Acheron, Ripping Corpse, Revenant. That's classic. That's got to be an older one. Ripping Corpse and Revenant. So that's got to be like 1990. The Electric Banana. Not really sure where that is either. If anybody knows, let me know. I don't know if that's Florida, if it's up north somewhere. It might be up north. Because it's unless Ripping Corpse and Revenant came down to Florida, I don't know. Maybe they did. Not 100% sure. But yeah, hails to Acheron. And then talking about, speaking of Disincarnate, James Murphy, glare. He sent the demo to us, Soul Erosion. I know this is kind of rare too. And a lot of people love the Dreams of the Carry-On Kind. That's a good fucking solid death metal record. But yeah, I got the demo. This is from James. Thanks, James. At one point, I think I mentioned this on other episodes. Extinction of God was reviewed in Metal Maniacs, both issues. So we got a lot of publicity from that, especially Liz from 13 was ragging on aspects of it. So that interested people even more because we had some naked girl pictures and stuff like that. You know, Bart and I were hanging out with strippers and, you know, crazy Salvadorian girls out in Hollywood and stuff. We'd go out there to the dance clubs and try to pick them up and whatnot. So we were some fucking horny dudes back in the day. You know what I mean? So yeah. And we, Bart liked to take pictures of everything. So some of them were pretty vulgar or whatnot. So, and yeah, we might have put him in the fanzine there, and that ticked Liz off. I've talked about this in the past on when I did the 13, talked about the 13 demo in one of the episodes a while ago. But anyways, I think that's James, you know, when he was establishing Disincarnate, he sent us the demo. So there that is real quick, since I mentioned that. They played that show. But yeah, hails to the mighty Acheron. Okay, the last band on the original Florida death metal list that I wanted to talk about was DVC. Darth Vader's Church, old ass demo there. Darth Vader's Church, fucking rules. Underrated. Total classic. They were formed in 1988 in Tallahassee, Florida. And this is the Constrictus Mortem demo. This is demo number 1 in 1989. They threw 9 songs on this too. And I guess they did another demo called Primus Omega in 89, but I never got a copy of that. Definitely a cult band. And they did another demo in 89 called Demo 89 that had 7 songs on there. So yeah, they were pretty prolific. And they did a couple albums too. So they did the Descendant Upheaval album, which a lot of people know about. And I used to when I would go into Wild Rags, even before working there, that album would be sitting there up front because Richard had the new vinyl section, and some of it was import, some of it was domestic, but that Darth Vader's Church record was always staring at me. So I was finally like, man, what the fuck? What is this? And I ended up getting a copy of it, but the band's address is in there. So I wanted to find out what other stuff they had. We didn't have, you know, Metal Archives and all that stuff and Discogs back then. You couldn't, you know, you had to communicate with these people or just by word of mouth, talk to your friends. So I ended up writing to somebody from the band because the address was inside there. So I got this demo, you know, that's what they had left. This is an original from the band. I don't even remember who I wrote to, unfortunately. But yeah, they self-released their own albums too. That's what's crazy. So it was called Manufacture Sound Company, and that was their own label. So that Descendant Upheaval record's fucking badass. It's got some of these songs on there. And yeah, I had to backtrack and try to find out what's up with this band. But yeah, they didn't have any of the other demos, unfortunately. They just had this one. So that's what I got, which is fine, you know. I did end up seeing a review of this demo in Brian Patterson's fanzine. Again, rest in peace, Brian, my buddy from Buffalo, Chainsaw Abortions. So he did a write-up on there, and that was cool, you know, seeing people talk about this demo. I think there was Battalion Slayer Mag, he had reviewed either the demo or the album. That it got around, man. These guys were definitely, I mean, they're very cult, obviously, kind of unknown compared to all these other bands I'm talking about here, but they're killer band. You know, again, if you like the Florida death metal sound, you'll like DVC too, Darth Vader's Church, and fucking heavy duty stuff. Check it out. Get the link up on YouTube, and then look into the albums too, especially that Descendant Upheaval record. It's kind of got the purple tinge to it or whatever. And but that other album too, the second album is pretty damn good too. It's just a little bit more experimental, you know, but yeah, they fucking killer stuff. So I had to close out the Florida death metal classics with DVC and their Constructus Mortem demo, 1989. Classic stuff. So that'll bring an end to my original list of bands that I wanted to talk about today with the tapes. And boom, I had to change my shirt real quick because we're going to talk 3 more bands as a bonus because I ran across these tapes. I was like, I could do a next episode with it, but I want to focus on other states and countries with these tape stacks episodes and the other 7-inch stuff I was talking about. Plus I got some live tapes and all kinds of other shit, LPs. So yeah, this fit the concept for now for Florida. I mean, Florida has so many fucking killer bands from back in the day. Like I said, Death and Morbid Angel will have their own episodes, fuck's sake. And then there's still enough bands to do a whole episode, so classic stuff. But yeah, we're going to talk about Assuck, aka Assuck. This is their Born Backwards demo. Classic stuff. This is from Paul. What the Warner Brothers thing there, the case. I don't know what the story is with that. Funny. Probably that's what he had, And then there is there's a live tape from at some point. They did a lot of live stuff, And this is cool. I've talked about this before. This was made by Paul. As we wrote to him, both Bart and I wrote to Paul, the singer. Awesome dude. And this is like a handmade discography that he did for us. So it's got all kinds of stuff. It's got the Misery Index. This is after he was out of the band too, which is interesting. We were still in contact with him. The split with Old because Steve sang on Misery Index, but this has a bunch of stuff. So this probably was like 93, 94. We were still writing with him. So I know Bart was trading with him still. Paul had a lot of stuff. He left the band to teach or whatever. There might have been some issues within the band or whatever. But yeah, this has the Misery Index, the split with Old Lady Drivers, the State to State and Anti-Capital on side 1. And then side 2's got the Necro Salvation 7-inch, another live show, the Blind Spot 7-inch, and then the Bombs of Death side of the split with Acheron. So yeah, it's pretty much a discography. They put out some other stuff. They got a bunch of other live recordings and whatnot. I think they even had a demo prior to Born Backwards, maybe. I have to look that up. But this is really, really cool. Handmade collector's item straight from Paul. Now, the main focus obviously was the Born Backwards demo, and this has classic stuff on it. But it's all great. Obviously, that compilation rules too. But now I know Assuck is not a death metal band, right? They're a grindcore band. I'm aware of that. But if you think they aren't part of the Florida death metal story, then you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Because they recorded at Morrisound. They worked with Scott Burns. Steve Heritage worked at Morrisound. He worked on Cannibal Corpse Records, Obituary, Deicide. He was an engineer, helped set up mics and all that kind of stuff for Scott at Morrisound. So Assuck's connected. Plus Paul's vocals are, death metal as fuck. The riffs, very, very death metal influenced. These guys were just a fucking speedy death metal band, basically, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, even faster than Repulsion, which I thought was like a fast death metal band to me, but everybody says it's grindcore. Now, don't get me wrong, Assuck's total grindcore, but they're definitely connected to the Florida death metal scene for sure. So yeah, I had to bust out my old Assuck shirt. I can barely fit in the goddamn thing anymore. I got it a long time ago, so I had to squeeze into it for this special extension of some cult Florida tapes. But Assuck was formed in 1988 in St. Petersburg, which is connected to Tampa. So really, really killer stuff. And here's some classic pictures live. They're one of the greatest and most intense live bands you're ever going to see. If you ever saw them, because they're, obviously not around anymore. But especially with Paul singing, he was just such a nut. Steve was all over the place. There's Spinach back there on bass. Very energetic, kind of like you see those pictures of the English hardcore bands like Ripcord and Heresy doing splits and 10th Degree and stuff. That's these guys. Assuck was definitely kind of like that. There's some cool. This is later on. There's Rob Proctor on drums. So yeah, they were a 3-piece for a long time, and then they got. Oh no, that's not Spinach on bass. I think that's Steve Kasiba. My bad. I met Spinach, who actually was in Assuck over a period of time, because my friends Daryl and Spinach also sang and played bass and various things over the years to help Assuck and join Rob and Steve. So yeah, but Steve Heritage is the guitar player, singer, and Misery Index, and he was just the guitarist on Anti-Capital and some of the other stuff. And then Steve Kasiba was the bass player that was on the first tour. And I saw that pretty cool flyer that Phobia posted on their Instagram. This brings back memories. So I was actually in Phobia around this time. This was like 92. So I was playing bass for Phobia, and I only played one show with them up in San Jose. Legendary show with Exhumed and Immortal Fate, Plutocracy's last show at that point because they broke up. And Mind Rot came up. So it was Phobia, Mind Rot from Orange County driving up there to play with Exhumed, Immortal Fate, and Plutocracy. And legendary stuff. So this show is cool, though. So, yeah, Assuck was in town on a U.S. tour, and they played with Fear Factory. Fear Factory actually came from the Los Angeles Death Metal Underground, and there's Dystopia, the early lineup of Dystopia they had just formed with my buddy Dan on vocals. He was the guitar player for Ruin and for a long time, and then obviously the mastermind behind the Mind Rot stuff. He was the Mind Rot guitar player. So, yeah, hell of a lineup. And this particular show happened out in the Inland Empire, out in the middle of nowhere, at this weird like roadhouse biker bar type place, but it was empty. So can you imagine Assuck and Fear Factory playing this middle of nowhere place? I mean, just annihilated it. And the Dystopian Phobia supporting. So yeah, the Phobia show, I was supposed to play bass at this show. Shane wanted me. I had already quit. Shane wanted me to play bass, but my buddy Jeremy from Morjon ended up playing bass for Phobia for the show. So I never got word. I just kind of was whatever. I was going to go to the show anyways, but next thing I know, Jeremy's jamming with him. Say, it's whatever. It's all good. So a little later on during the Misery Index cycle, I wanted to share these flyers real quick. So my band Gasp got to play with Assuck later on. So that's a hell of a lineup. There's Phobia again. Jenny Piccolo was a cool band, and some openers. This is at the PCH Club in Wilmington, and it was fucking hell of a time. Assuck fucking still ruled. PCH Club is a tiny little place. There's another flyer too. This is the one that we made. I believe Mitch and I made that. Maybe just Mitch. I don't know. But yeah, cool stuff. PCH. Beautiful Wilmington. But I had to include Assuck, as you can see. Assuck got the umlauts. That's what my buddy Sean from Ruin, the original drummer, he used to call him Assuck. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, well, they don't call it Motley Crue, right? It's Motley Crue. And I was like, dude, I think Assuck just did that because of Motley Crue. But yeah, this is my Assuck tape collection. Killer stuff. Love it. Classics. So hails to Paul, man. Really cool guy. I don't know what's going on with him. When I ran into Spinach at Maryland Death Fest, because he works the crew. He's part of the crew at Maryland. And he worked Soundstage, where Gasp played in 2018. And he said Assuck was in talks getting back together. I don't think they were going to include Steve Heritage, but it was pretty much everybody else. It'd be Rob, Kasiba, Spinach, and Paul. That would have been cool. So I assume Spinach was playing bass, guitar. So I don't know. That would have been awesome. But yeah, he was telling me, we'll do some shows with Gasp on the West Coast. That would have been amazing, Assuck and Gasp. sign me up, but never happened. So, but yeah, I wanted to include Assuck on here, one of my all-time favorite bands, Florida Legends, and definitely has a death metal sound. So don't argue with me because you will be wrong. All right, just a couple more bands and then we'll get out of here. But next up is Equinox. Killer band. And this is Anthems to the Moon. One of my favorites, actually. Definitely has a death black metal sound. This is another recording from them that we were able to get, and I believe they were in contact with Extinction of God, and Bart was handling that. But I ended up getting these tapes from him. He's like, "Oh, you'll like this." They were formed in 1992, so a little bit after the initial boom. They had their own sound, though, kind of more similar to Acheron, where it's like death black metal. A lot of nice doomy passages, too. They were formed in Mount Plymouth, Florida. So this one is Demo 94. So, yeah, we were in contact with them, probably for the zine and the compilations and whatnot. And really good stuff. Good, high quality, classic dark death metal, basically. So yeah, if you like that style, you'll definitely like Equinox. Look them up. Totally killer. Nice, and this one's nice and raw. Just, has the typical early 90s death metal demo production to it. They're forming the ideas. This one's a little bit more put together. You can tell they're gelling a little bit. And it's Pete and Tony from Druid Lord, the awesome Druid Lord. Good guys, too. Connected with those guys online. And been a fan of, Pete's stuff for a long time. He formed Equinox. And then, him and Tony later formed Druid Lord, which is fucking awesome. A little bit more slow and swampy, but still fucking killer. But yeah, Equinox, they got quite a few things out too. So look them up. A few albums, and pretty beloved cult band. Just the diehards are into them. But fucking look up their stuff. See if you can find anything that they've done. It's all killer. It's all high quality stuff. There's even like a box set that I saw floating around at one point. I think it's got cassettes. Might have CDs. I don't know. But yeah, look it up. Discogs, definitely an underrated band that deserves more attention. And then support Druid Lord too, because Druid Lord fucking rules. And I wanted to sneak Equinox onto this list because, like I said, I think they're underrated and deserve a little bit more attention, as does Druid Lord too. So I know a couple of the Druid Lord guys help Cam out with Massacre too at this point. So they've been touring with him and doing festivals and stuff like that. So yeah, like I said, Florida is really interconnected. That's one of the reasons why the scene down there exploded. High quality, but they supported each other too. Not everybody always gets along and whatnot, but seems like they really had a really good community. Obviously some of these guys left and formed their own projects and whatnot, but then, they would come back and they all work together. They would gig together. So it didn't seem like there was a lot of animosity, maybe a couple issues here and there, obviously, as I've talked about earlier with some of the bands, but Equinox, man, fucking killer stuff. Thank you, Pete, for Equinox, one of my favorite, like I said, cult bands that not enough people talk about. Here is a cool picture from back in the day. Hell yeah. Classic. You can't even, I think that's even Pete back there in the darkness. You can barely see it's like a specter. Probably did that on purpose. Oh, it's the quality of the picture too. The copy is pretty low, but yeah, it's, that's from the Demo 94. So check them out. Equinox fucking rules. Or you can even call them Equinox if you want. Call them whatever you want. Just check them out. All right. And that being said, this is the final band of the Florida episode. I promise. No more bonus bands, but I had to throw these last 3 in there after the mighty DVC. But this is Matricide. And this is the project of John Ortega, who played bass on Abominations of Desolation. Believe he did. There he is. This is the Matricide picture. So it's just him. He plays all the instruments. And yeah, it's cool shit. I guess it would be what you would consider, or like, oh, the hip kids these days call it proto-death, so it's like pre-death metal or whatever. Listen, I don't know about all those stupid names. It's death metal, but it's just like, I always call it 80s death metal, right? So it's the early stuff, Mantis Death, Death Strike Master, that kind of genocide, Repulsion. So some of this Matricide stuff reminds me of like the Cryptic Slaughter demo, maybe the Wehrmacht demo, to where it's like Death Thrash, but so very extreme and raw. Dead Conspiracy, early death metal, early on. It's death metal though, so it's just too extreme for thrash, but it's almost like, yeah. And we wrote to John. John's a cool guy. This is the Mother's Day demo. So this is the first demo. And yeah, we were in contact with John. We were tape trading with him. So this is the Mother's Day demo. And then this is the second demo, the Elysium demo. And I think that's all he did. Trying to get the glare off. Yeah. Killer stuff. So these are originals from John Ortega. And let's see. They're formed in 1987 in Winter Haven, Florida. So the Mother's Day demo was 1987 and the Elysium demo is 1988. And I believe they were also on the Apocalyptic Things compilation #2. So as I've talked about, that's what's cool. That's how we got in contact with John at that point. We had no idea that, he had been in Morbid Angel and whatnot. Matricide was not advertised as that. So I'm trying to think. Let's see. Yeah, John played bass on Abominations of Desolation and pretty much all of those early tapes that I showed earlier. Scream Forth the Blasphemies, that one red cover promo. So yeah, he played bass and all that stuff. And then David Vincent took over bass and vocals, obviously, for Thy Kingdom Come demo. So once Morbid Angel started really sharpening the knives, so to speak, they got, David took over the frontman duties and played bass as well. So, but yeah, no, John played on some legendary stuff, obviously. So, but that was cool, discovering Matricide through the Apocalyptic Things comp #2, which I had talked about earlier. And another cool fact is that John also played guitar on the second Master full length on the Seventh Day God Created Master. So that's a killer record. John played on that too. So he was part of some legendary stuff. But this Elysium demo has 5 songs. Killer stuff. Let's see. It's got Warrior of the Seventh Domain, Matricide theme song. Kingdoms Lost to the Shadows of Another Mind, Shadows Beyond the Unseen Realm, and Evil Dead. I don't think that's the death song. This is a longer one. But yeah, classic stuff. Love this demo. The Mother's Day is cool too. A little bit more, I'm not going to call it crossover, thrashy, but yeah, it's definitely got a little bit more hardcore influence, and he was getting a little heavier, but there's still, that's got the punk energy to it of a lot early death metal stuff, 80s stuff. So yeah, it's definitely not doesn't sound exactly like some of the other stuff that I've talked about today. You know, the Florida sound, quote unquote. You know, it's got its own thing. But yeah, I wanted to sneak this in here too. This is not talked about enough. Assuck being, you know, one of my all-time favorite bands, and then Equinox and Matricide don't get enough love. So I wanted to give their demo some love, and give John Ortega some love too, because he's a Florida death metal legend in his own right. Well, that being said, thank you, everybody. I'm trying to post as much as possible, but it's just not happening right now. Very busy with stuff and family coming and going. And as I stated earlier, just craziness of the start of the year. So work has also been pretty hectic, understaffed. What else is new, right? So yeah, I've been working a lot and covering shifts and trying to help out in that realm, and as well as the usual homestead stuff. But I appreciate you guys. I try to post as much as possible. Not really sure exactly what the exact next episode is going to be about and when it's going to post, but it'll be fucking something cool. I don't know if it's going to be 7 inches or more demos. I might do the live tape thing next, which is really cool. And I might be able to get away with playing some live footage too, as long as it's not official. The live stuff seems to play perfectly fine on YouTube, so I might just do that. But anyways, I really appreciate you guys. Hopefully you didn't get too bored at the first part of the video, but I had to discuss the fires and my 2 buddies that passed away. So before we got going, and then I wanted to throw in the 2 most influential death metal bands, maybe not even just in Florida, just in general in the worldwide, you know, Death and Morbid Angel. Like I said, Death kicked it off, Mantis and Death kicked it off, and then Morbid Angel perfected it. So, I mean, if you don't agree with the worldwide sound of death metal, but you could definitely agree with the Florida sound of death metal. So, but either way, if you don't agree, you're wrong. I'm right. So, hope you like the show. Make sure to spread it around to those you think would be interested, or if you know any of these band members that you think would get a kick out of it. I'd love to talk to some of these cats and thank them, you know, for being a part of the monumental history. And this was definitely a monumental show. It was a beast to put together. It took a long time. So for that, again, I apologize. I'm trying to post as much as possible, but I just don't have the time that others have, you know, these days. So, but again, like, subscribe if you haven't, comment, try to respond to people as best as I can. And if you got any recommendations, any stories, any insight about anything, but especially with this episode about Florida death metal, but any bands that you think would deserve some coverage, I do have a lot more Florida tapes. I'll have to see if I have it. I don't have everything. Remember that, because I do get suggestions. Oh, why don't you talk about this? It's like, I don't have that demo. I guess I could try to hunt it down. But I like to talk about original copies from the past if I can. If not, like some sort of old bootleg from that era, you know, a tape trader copy. So most of the stuff that I talk about, unless I specify it's a re-release or a modern bootleg, I pretty much talk about the OGs, you know, the originals from that era, one way or the other. Either, like I said, from the bands, from tape traders, from stores that would carry the demos. You know, these are all pretty much from that era, from the 90s. So for the most part, I'm going to cover the old stuff and the original copies if I can. If not, some sort of tape trader or bootleg copy of it from back in the day. So again, thanks for supporting Welcome to Hell. This was episode 25, Florida Death Metal Demo Madness. And I will see you next time. Everybody have a good one and a better one tomorrow. See ya.